Happy Wine Wednesday, everyone. I hope you are having a fabulous week. I hope your tanks are just swimmingly successful. I'm so good at my intro, I know. And if you are on Instagram, don't forget that Ray is probably the only one you can see clearly because of the aspect ratio. If you want to just listen, feel free. If you want to see us and actually chat with us, jump on over to YouTube and go to Seahorse Whisperer, and you'll see our live will be the first thing you see. We have today with us Ray, Holly, Cheryl, and Dan, which is great because we don't get him as often anymore. But we had intended to show Cheryl's tanks today, and we have all these pictures and awesome footage to show you guys. But for some reason, we're having trouble with Cheryl's audio. We lost her last week, and then this week we're having trouble again. So we're going to postpone the Cheryl Day till next week so that she can actually share what we're seeing. And I apologize that we're so late. We were trying to fix it, but just know that next week we will definitely do Cheryl's tanks. Okay, now I'm done with my spiel. Welcome, everybody. Dan, how you been, first of all?
Still kicking.
Still kicking. Should we, I rushed us into starting, so I didn't even ask what we should start with. Do you want to start with, Holly, with your video to ask Dan about the ciliates?
Sure, that's fine. I just want, watch the video, everybody, and I'd like some different opinions. I'll kind of explain first before you show it, what's going on.
Okay, so, wait, Holly, before you explain, was it in our me and you's chat, just us?
Or I sent it just to you privately in Messenger.
Okay, thank you. All right, you go ahead and explain. I'll shut up.
Okay, so I have a 55-gallon tank. There's 4 seahorses in it, 2 peppermint shrimp, 1 blue spotted watchman goby, and a handful of crabs. And I did a little bit of research on ciliates. I'm pretty sure the seahorses have them, but I'm not sure to what degree. So I was hoping by watching I could get some expert opinions. The thing is, I found out by researching the ciliates a little more, even the shrimp can have the ciliates, and I can't treat them. I can't treat the crabs. I can't treat the shrimp. So the tank is going to continue to have ciliates. The way I'd be treating the seahorses is just to do freshwater dip. I'm not going to put them through formalin or anything like that. But I'm wondering if it's worth it to do freshwater dips on them, if I should leave them alone. If I do freshwater dips, how often should I do it? So I just don't have the experience to tell, how bad, they have it. But it sounds like if I treat them, they're just going to get ciliates again, so just kind of need some opinion. But by watching her, they're pretty much all doing the same thing. And this is just Sadie eating a meal. But it's a good video. You can see what's going on.
All right, let's see. Here we go.
Just in my opinion, I don't think I've ever had a tank without ciliates.
Right, they're everywhere.
There's something in
what I think.
There's something about the system that is allowing them to get out of control. And for me personally, when that happens, it's been water quality issues.
Mm-hmm.
So she's kind of doing the coughing thing a little bit. Not really.
Not bad. And that's what I'm saying. I don't know what out of control is.
Right.
So see, she kind of did there.
Have you already done the dip?
I haven't yet.
Okay.
Because it's going to involve 4 seahorses, possibly goby. My pH is low on the fresh water, so I have to add baking soda. I mean, it's going to be a big undertaking. So
I never worry about the pH for a dip.
Okay. Because the pH is 7.4. My tank is 8 3.1
I
roughly.
know, but you only have them in there for a short period of time, and it just adds to the
Okay.
shock value.
All right.
Okay. So
So-
go ahead.
Are we seeing a repeat of the video, or are we?
Yeah, when you see
Okay,
her move
okay.
over, yeah.
So
I'll
my
stop
first
sharing.
question is was this one of the tanks you were putting peroxide in?
This is the only tank I put peroxide in.
And how much are you putting in?
Twice a day, I use 10 milliliters each time.
Okay. My first suggestion is to go ahead and do a freshwater dip. And
Okay.
you don't have to do them all four at one time. You can do them individually.
Well, yeah, I was
Doesn't
going
make-
to do them individually.
So I would dip her first and see what the reaction is and see if there's a big reaction or not. Because
Mhm.
this could be an issue with ciliates, but it could be nothing to worry about too. You know, what
Gotcha.
I'm looking at is not something that I would sit here and freak out over, but at the same time, a freshwater dip, you can do it as a diagnostic tool, and it'll help clean her up if she does have them.
Hmm.
I mean, if she had weak SNC and, you know, it heavy duty breathing, you know, I'd be a little bit more aggressive, but
Hmm.
you know, the amount of peroxide you're putting in there, it's hard for me to believe that you have a major ciliate problem in that tank. That's not to say that she can't have any ciliates on her, but
Yeah.
I don't see this tank as being a major production of ciliates with that much peroxide going into it.
Gotcha.
And I was going to
Just
say,
like I
I've
said,
seen
I
Seahorse.
just can't tell. You know, I see it happening. I see signs of it, but it's not like all the time. Like once in a while, I'll see somebody rub their head on something. Once in a while, somebody will yawn, but it's not happening constantly. So I'm like, well, is it bad
Well,
enough?
if you hung around with me long enough, you'd see me scratch here and there, and you'd see me yawn a couple times.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that, Holly, as I've seen that video, I wouldn't even be stressed about that. I've seen seahorses literally. I remember my reed, I had them in a smaller tank, and it just,
Mhm.
like Ray was saying, I wasn't keeping up with it, and they would like yawn. And I mean, you could, you know, Cheryl's talked about that too. But anyways, one of her
So
questions, Dan,
maybe
from a
just
few.
dip one and then see what comes off of her.
Right. Dip the one that you think is being affected and see what the results are.
Okay.
And one of the things Holly asked a week or two ago, Dan, when we were talking about this, is, you know, the big problem is you use the freshwater dip as a diagnostic tool, and of course to treat if there's a problem, but then you're putting it right back in the tank. So what if you don't like if you can't foresee any true problems? Do you just suggest more water changes, or because that's always been the problem with treating a seahorse? Then you're putting it right back into the system that has the problem, right?
Well,
Or does it?
the way that I've always done it, I mean, you know, it depends upon whether you're doing a display tank or whether you're doing a production tank. In a display setting, typically you would do the freshwater dip, then put them in a hospital tank or a quarantine tank that's clean. And if there's a parasitic load, then usually I recommend following that up with a formalin treatment, long-term formalin, you know, 1 ml per 10 gallons for at least 3 treatments of 6 days. In a production tank, without, you know, any corals or anything that can be harmed by the formalin, you can just go ahead and treat the tank itself.
Yeah, that's what Cheryl suggested a week or two ago, I think, is just
Yeah.
treating the tank. But Holly, you have inverts and stuff, right? So
Yeah. So, I mean, if I treat them in the hospital tank with the formalin, then I'm just putting them back in with the ciliates again. So I'm like, should I maybe do a freshwater dip every few months?
I have a
or
hard
so?
time believing you've got a major ciliate outbreak in that tank.
Well, maybe I don't, Dan. Maybe you're right. I'll just
maybe
have
we
to
freak
dip
out.
somebody and keep you guys posted. I'll let you know.
Yeah, but I you know, you can have ciliates on the animal without having a major breakout in the tank. Okay. So, you know, and based on what I'm seeing, I'm not seeing a major ordeal with the animal. That's not to say that they're perfectly clean, but I'm not seeing a major ordeal. So, with the amount of peroxide you're putting in that tank, it's really hard for me to believe that you've got a major ciliate problem going on in it.
Gotcha.
I
So they
think
might have them, probably have a few, but they're not like a huge issue, really.
Yep.
I'll just dip somebody and see what comes off them. and
There you
see.
go. And I don't mean to keep speaking for Cheryl, but unfortunately she can't talk very well this time. But she pointed out a few weeks ago that Dan, so that gives us a little bit better understanding. The ciliates, I'm not saying they're not in the water, but they're more on. They're like almost parasites. They're on the host, right? They're on
Well, they can be
a
in the
being,
water too. They can be in the water.
right? But
Mhm.
and they always are. But I'm just saying they prefer to be on an animal, correct?
Correct.
Or no?
But
Okay.
with the, you know, at 10 mLs of peroxide twice a day in that size tank, you know, assuming it's 3%, especially if she's been doing this regularly for a while, I really have a very difficult time believing there's a massive amount of organics there to promote the growth of the ciliates. And the
Which
peroxide
everybody,
itself
sorry.
will wipe down the ciliate population anyway.
I need to start muting myself because I keep interrupting everybody. I'm gonna work on that. But I just wanted to say, everybody, go back, watch Ask Seahorse Source Part 3, where Dan actually talks about the peroxide and the probiotics. And Andrea, I see, is here, and she's our life source for the Mike F now. So go get those links from that video. And other than that, Holly, if you had more questions, feel free. But I had nothing planned for this week because it was Cheryl. So anything you guys want to talk about, if you have questions in the comment section, anything you want to chat about, anything questions you have, today is the day, because it is now open chat. But anyway, Holly, did you have any more questions about that?
No, that was the only thing for me. I just wanted you guys to watch and get some opinions, because like I said, I don't know if I have a problem or not. It's hard for me to tell. I don't have the experience. So I appreciate you guys watching and giving me your input. Thank you, Dan.
Anytime.
And when
have you
go ahead,
changed what you're feeding
Cheryl. Everybody.
food a larger size than what you were feeding earlier in the year?
She said, did you change the size of food you're feeding?
No, it's the same size food. I'm feeding them more often now. And so they get like a breakfast and a dinner and a small lunch.
Okay. Well, all I know is, from, it's so easy to overthink things.
What's going on hasn't changed, honestly. They've had that behavior for 2 years.
Yeah.
Nothing has changed with the way they are.
But I would not be too worried.
Right. And it's so easy to over worry. I can't dance. Like, I've got him on speed dial, and he's so sick of me because I'll call and I'll be like, wait, look, the gills are a little down. Is it okay?
I'm like, oh, she spit out a food. Scrappy's coughing. You know, Candy's scratching her head on a thing. But it's not like they're sitting around doing it all the time. I just see it once in a while, and then I'm like, oh, is there a problem? So,
right. Well, I sent Chris Carey a video one time because I think it was the middle of the night and he's in Australia. So it was, his daytime. And it was a male who truly, I should have pulled up the video. Maybe I will if we get to talking, but truly looked like he was giving birth. He was doing the, the jerking, like the labor pains that they do and all of this, but nothing was coming out. And I was like, does that mean that there's gunk in there or something? Like, it's so easy to get worked up and freaked out and, everything else.
But they plan this. They know what they're doing. I'm kidding.
Yeah, I know it.
The thing is, with ciliates, too, this is normal. It's been going on 2 years. They could have ingested some sand at the same time they made a snack. They're spitting out, trying to spit out the sand. There's other things that can cause or make them appear.
Yeah, but they do it when they're eating, and there's not sand now. There's generally, they're not picking at the sand. So I'm pretty sure it is ciliates. I just think it might not be enough for me to worry about it. But I think when I dip them, because I did do that when I introduced a couple years ago, when I introduced Scrappy Doo and Sadie to the tank. They were small. They were a lot smaller. And I did give them a dip, a freshwater dip, because they were bothering them. I could tell. And stuff did come off of them. But it took like 8-9 seconds before they started getting uncomfortable. And, stuff came off of them, and I haven't dipped them since, but they grew. Now they're big seahorses, and they're not acting as bothered as they were when they were little. So I haven't done anything, but, I just kind of needed to know, what is the point when you need to treat them, or
Right. That's a good way of, Dan, I was going to say, the fear is that if they get too gunked up, too many little buggies in their gills or whatnot, that they stop eating and they have a hard time getting food down. Is that the real fear, or what is the fear of a high ciliate tank?
Weak SNC is a progressive type thing. Typically, it's not unless it's mechanical, it's not an instantaneous. So what happens is you see it progress over time, where they have a more and more difficult time eating food. And if you see that happening, then of course a freshwater dip will tell you if they have a load, and if they do, if you go ahead and treat it, call early. Weak SNC is almost 100% successful. It's when they can't eat is when it's more problematic. And there are some other things that can cause it. I mean, if you've got weak SNC from a mechanical injury, that injury's got to heal before they can eat. And if you've got, there was an article that Tammy put up a number of years ago where a vet was trying to say it was from improper feeding, and, it was due to malnutrition within the musculature. That was something they were seeing in public aquariums, but I really haven't seen it in the hobby. I just haven't. And unless they're to the point where they can't eat, I would say your chances of success in treating it are extremely high if you follow the protocols in the articles. If they aren't eating, it's a little bit trickier, but if you're persistent with it and do it properly, your odds are in your favor of correcting it.
And basically freshwater dip to determine, and then go ahead.
Yeah, you would do a freshwater dip. We followed up with a round of long-term formalin immersion, and then if necessary, we do another dip. Except this time, I usually do a high concentration formalin dip, and I follow it up again with another round of immersion if necessary. That usually does it. Now, there's the potential to have a secondary bacterial infection, and if that occurs, usually it's progressed very far at that point, so it's a lot trickier. But then antibiotics are needed, and usually I've had success turning that around as well. And my most successful cases in doing that are people who've called me and who I've worked with them, where wasn't a message on a board, my seahorse is sick, what do I do? It was somebody who I could get all the details and actually instruct them and make sure they understood what I was saying.
Yep. Absolutely. And one last. Go ahead, Ray. Sorry.
I don't think I've ever lost a seahorse to ciliates, unless it happened. My first seahorses that I lost and I didn't know anything. Maybe they were lost because of ciliates and I didn't even know anything about them at that time. But since I've known about ciliates, I don't think I've ever lost a seahorse to that.
I don't think I've lost any adult seahorses to ciliates, but your two number one causes of losing fry are ciliates and bacterial enteritis. So I have to say I've lost a bunch of them.
Yeah.
So I guess, Kelly, I can make you a video of the freshwater dip. So
if you can do the video of the freshwater dip, that would be great, just for teaching purposes. Especially if you can have a timer in the background where you can see the timer as well as the animal in the dip.
The seconds where stuff starts happening. Yeah.
It's going to be different from every animal, but it's a great guide to go with,
Yes, Holly, please make the video. And you guys, if you want to see it, she'll of course post it, but it's going to be online Wednesday. So be here. Yeah. But I made a video a long time ago. I actually had to stop the video to FaceTime Dan and be like, oh my gosh, why is this happening? But because it's scary looking, but as he's told us repeatedly, they're fine. but my
freak
seahorse
out.
was flipping out because there was a problem. And Danny or anybody, you guys have said if there's not a problem, they just chill, right? I mean,
I've had them
that's
sit
how you
there
know?
for the whole time and just like, what the hell am I doing in here?
Yeah.
You know?
Right. Could they freak out because of that though? Because
Yes,
they're
you can also have a freak out because of being moved. But if you're dealing with captive animals, that's less so. With wild caught, it's much more prevalent.
sure. And the one trick with mine, I remember because I have the video, guys, but I fear if I posted it, everybody be like, ah, because it just looks scary, you know. But I knew there was a problem. You told me there was a problem because he was using his tail to
Yeah.
his freak out, using his tail to smack his own head and try to get things off of his gills. It was
Poor
awful,
thing.
but I know, but it was good for him, you know. They were not; those seahorses were not from any of our respectable breeders, by the way. It was an order from a place they shouldn't have ordered.
We used to take seahorses coming from overseas, 100 of them at a time, and when we would unbox them, we would, instead of acclimating them to a tank, we freshwater dipped them and then put them in the tank.
Smart.
So they went straight from packaging to freshwater dip to the tank. And I never lost a seahorse doing that.
Well, they probably did freak out then, but
I know, but I'm just saying though, I mean, if you want to talk about being worried and scared, I mean, when you spend that kind of money for 100 seahorses, from
right.
overseas, but that was our test to see if they were clean or not and whether or not we had to do anything.
Sure.
But that's also what taught me about not having to do the drip method.
Because they didn't need it. Gotcha.
Yeah,
But I mean,
temperature.
you don't advise that for captive bred though. Captive bred, you wouldn't advise like doing
If
fresh
you're
water
getting
dip.
it from a reputable breeder, no.
Yeah. Okay.
Just put them in.
Yep. Well, temperature acclimation.
Yeah, you
Don't
got to
forget that part.
acclimate for temperature, but that's it.
Hey,
you got to
Holly,
remember. You got to remember. Somebody mentioned about back in the '90s, and there was a whole lot we didn't know back then. And early on, when I was doing this, there was a lot of information we didn't know and didn't understand, and a lot of stuff we were learning with.
Yeah, I think that's what Ray said just a minute ago, because everybody's in the comments saying, thank you guys so much. And Ray said, we didn't know then what we know now. So,
Yep.
Yeah, things are definitely different. Holly, I just thought too, am I looking at this correctly? Was your, somebody messaged you with a dark spot? Was that from today?
Oh, yeah, from late last night, and I shared it this morning.
Okay. Is it okay for me to share on here? Yeah. You think? Okay. All right. I'm going to share it, and then you can tell us what we're seeing. Go ahead.
Well, I don't know what we're seeing really, but it's, yeah. So Laura sent me, originally she sent me pictures of the seahorse in the tank, and I couldn't see what she was describing, so I asked her to take it out of the tank and take a picture under good lighting, and I could see better. And so it's a dark spot, and she was gone for 4 days and then noticed it. And I've never seen anything like that before. So I had no idea. I told her, I said, I don't think it's bacterial, because usually bacterial I see white. And she doesn't have crabs or anything that could pinch it, she said, or hurt it that she knows of. But so I don't know if it's an injury or something natural or a disease. I just never seen it before, so I ran it by the group for her.
One of the things I saw with this that concerned me is if you look to the left of where the darker spot is, there's actually a small bubble there. And it's, again, it's not black discoloration, but it definitely looks like something.
Do we have another picture?
Just these three. I'll go through them again. Hang on. Oh, wrong place. Here we go. So this one, I gotta make it small. Oh, we're going the wrong way. But congratulations to Alyssa for making Asna Aquarius of the Year. That's so cool.
I saw that.
All right, looks like I'm gonna have to. I think I gotta reshare it though. Hang on. Here we go.
Yeah.
So I gotta reopen it. Sorry, one sec. Takes me a second. Oh, geez. Hang on.
Yeah,
I'll
so
try to get it
Laura,
back up.
she is on the East Coast. She's the one you accidentally video chatted.
Just now? Okay.
Yeah,
so
when
we're glad
when
she's
we were
probably
trying to
watching.
troubleshoot Cheryl, but she had to work super early this morning and wasn't sure she could make it tonight to watch. So I said I'd share it, and discuss it.
So Dan,
So
is
you
that showing you anything?
have the dark spot
Well,
for the heel.
I see what Cheryl's talking about, but I'm not sure that that's actually a bubble. If that's a bubble there, then we have some concern, but
Yeah.
that could
Yeah.
also be a reflection of the lighting.
Yeah, I
Well, the
don't
next picture
really
doesn't look like a
see
bubble.
it,
It looks like it's just a black spot. I think it's the next picture.
but I'm
Now you
half.
guys know why we didn't do Cheryl's day today, because her audio is kind of screwy. But here's the second one.
There it is. See, there I don't see the bubble.
I don't see a bubble.
I don't either, but it's the resolution's not that great, and I'm half blind anyway, so I have a hard time seeing stuff. Yeah, that's why I told her to take him out, or to her, take her out of the tank and try to get good lighting and get a real clear picture, because it's hard to tell. They're so small, especially when people take pictures and they're in the tank. With
Right.
blue lighting is the worst. A lot of our aquariums, the lighting has a blue tint to it, and it makes it really hard to
Yeah,
see.
you want white lighting if you want somebody to try to diagnose the picture. Ray's advice earlier, I think, was spot on.
Mhm.
And I myself wouldn't do any treatment at this moment. I would just do observation. I don't think it's
Mhm.
bacterial. And I don't know what it is. It could be just a pigment issue.
Mhm.
But without symptoms and without anything else to go on, I'm not up on doing any type of treatment.
Yeah, there's no symptoms so far. She's acting normal, she said. So,
But
and
well,
she
my
did a
only
big water change. She said when she got home, she did a 40% water change and cleaned the tank.
see right there though, it does look like it. I mean, I get what Dan's saying, and I agree completely. But it does look like I mean, like, I don't know, because if it was a bite or something, it'd be indented in white, right? I mean,
Yeah, it looks like there's either something on the animal or it's a pigment issue.
okay,
Now, there can be different causes for pigment issues, but we don't know. And just throwing medicine at something you don't know, to me, doesn't make sense. And without
no,
any symptoms, I'm hesitant to treat anyway. You know, I, I'm a little bit slower than many to go throwing medicines at the animals, because quite often these things have a tendency to work themselves out.
I wouldn't
absolutely.
leave it in
That's
the
why-
tank right now, though.
That's
What, Ray?
I wouldn't leave it in the tank. Like if I don't know what the problem is and I can see that there is something there that's possibly a problem, then I would rather have it in the hospital tank so I can watch it rather than leave it in the tank where something might be making it worse.
Yep, that's what you said earlier, and I agreed with that. That makes perfect sense.
yeah.
So that was the Ray advice that you agreed with, is put it in a hospital tank and observe.
Yep,
Yeah,
he
with
said
fresh
that.
water. Yeah, no medicine.
Yep,
Yes.
Gotcha.
I was,
and
Okay,
then he
Cheryl, are you
suggested
trying
doing
to
a
say?
major cleaning on the tank.
I was thinking
Absolutely.
also.
So hospital, I'm going to let you speak, Cheryl, and we're all going to be quiet so you can. But so hospital tank, major cleaning of the main display tank, freshwater dip if needed. But in this kind of case, you wouldn't freshwater dip though, right?
No.
No.
Okay.
No.
So you just observe. Got it. Okay. So observe in a hospital tank and clean the real tank. Cheryl, speak. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, my first thought when I saw the blackish structure on it was it's something that the seahorse got into that's attached to the seahorse. I'm not sure what it is, but and my next thought was, what else is in the tank?
Right. So, and if you couldn't understand her, she said she thought something was attached to the seahorse, and then asked what else is
I
in the tank.
did
Go ahead,
ask
Holly.
her if her seahorses have algae on them, and they do. She said,
Ah,
which my seahorses do too. And at first, in her first picture, when she sent me one of the seahorse in the tank, it looked to me like there was a spot where algae had been scraped off. That's how my seahorses look when an algae gets scraped off of them. It was whiter, underneath, where the algae wasn't anymore, where rubbed it off or whatever. But the pictures she sent here are different from how it looked for the picture in the tank, which is why I had to take it out of the tank, because I can't see very well at all when people send me pictures of their seahorses in the tank and it's blue and I really can't see anything. So I was like, well, take it out of the tank because I can't tell anything otherwise. So it looks different, but I'm wondering if because I guess the algae is kind of dark sometimes. I'd be curious if, like, I remember Cheryl told me one time you can use a little paintbrush, and I actually got a little eyeshadow brush just for the seahorses to brush algae off now and then. And I did it once and it really worked. So, and you just
you know what?
And it comes off. I you don't have to scrub or anything. It just comes off.
I was going to say, I always tell people I actually had an issue where before I knew better, when I first started with seahorses, before I even knew any of you guys, I tried to use a new toothbrush, but yeah, and I didn't scrub. I just gently tried to get it off, and he ended up with a skin infection. So I always tell people,
yeah, you don't scrub, but yeah, a very soft brush, and you barely touch them in real light, and the loose algae will come off. And I don't do it, but I did try it once, and it worked.
Yeah, I'm sure it works, but the thing is,
thing I did was catch a seahorse, get a very, very soft brush, and just very gently kind of tickle it. And if the stuff starts to come off,
pantyhose over a fingertip works well too.
Well, I'm just like, to me, I figure, look, they're growing, the algae's growing on them. They're camouflage animals. I mean, they're trying to blend in. If you have, algae and macro in the tank, it always goes away. It doesn't stay there forever. The only big fear is we have had people who, I was going to say earlier, Holly, you said you hate that you can't see very well the pictures. People don't even send me pictures anymore because I'm so terrible at responding. So don't feel too bad. But I was going to say, the big fear though is if you have those darn starfish in the tank,
they'll eat a hole
white, they'll try it. They're not trying to hurt the seahorse, but they crawl onto the seahorse. They're eating the algae, and they'll end up eating the skin of the seahorse and create a hole. We've had that happen. So I guess in that case, you should probably maybe try to, if you have those stars, maybe try to. And okay, moving forward, John said if you have a minute. Sorry, Cheryl, what?
Stars.
Estrella stars, is that it? Estrella, something like that. Anyways, John wants to know, if you have a minute, can you give us an idea of the basic setup needed for a successful seahorse aquarium these days? We'll go through it, but definitely you should go watch Ask Seahorse Source Part 1, because he kind of goes through that, all the basics. But anybody Dan, you want to give a run through just the short version?
Well, the short version is at least a 30-gallon tank, and ideally you want roughly 25 to 30 gallons of water for each pair of seahorses. That's fairly lightly stocked, but that's for the longest term success and highest degree of success. I recommend that. Unlike the old days, you want your flow rate to be at a fairly high rate, ideally at least 10 turns per hour. And when I say flow, I'm talking about the exchange of water, not necessarily high current, but high turnover. You want really good mechanical filtration, ideally with a protein skimmer included. My preference is for systems with a sump, but it can be done with hang on the back. It's just your selection of equipment isn't quite as good as it is with a sump. And then watch what you put in there with them. If you're looking for tank mates to go in there with them, I would go to seahorse.org, go to their library and look at their tank mate guide. Use that as a go by and stick with the safest stuff, especially in the beginning. And then if you start having questions, just get on the group and start firing away. There's a lot of successful people out there. Today, there's a lot of people having success with seahorses, which is more the norm than it is back in the older days when very few people kept them for any period of time. And it's not unreasonable to expect to get 5 years or more out of a pair of seahorses in a tank today.
And what was the group you were talking about? I'll put a link, but what was it?
The Seahorse Source Group.
Yep. Okay. And Ray, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, well, I put on YouTube, but it didn't come up here on this screen. But I just suggested he go to the Facebook Seahorse Sources group and click on the files, because there's sure a pile of information on those files.
Yep.
Some
Yep.
people have a hard time finding it, but
the other thing that will come into play here, when you start worrying about other things, one of the things you should really focus on is your temperature of your water. Ideally, you want to keep the water below 78 degrees, ideally in the mid to low 70s. But 78 is like my magical cutoff number. I won't let the animals get up to 78 or higher, which a lot of people think of seahorses as tropical specimens, but reality is most people that keep them long term do better at lower temperatures.
And I'm just showing really. Oh, am I muted?
Nope,
No,
you're not
I'm
muted.
not. Okay, so I'm just showing. Sorry, I'm just showing the Seahorse Sources group files section. As it looks a little different on the phone, but if you only see like the first 3 because it's a cert, you just click the little dots to find more, and you find the file section, and there's like everything you could want to know in there. And what was the other thing? Oh, I'm gonna put up my little stop sharing. Sorry. Someone did ask me after a previous, because I discussed sorry, I keep forgetting to hi. One of the times we were talking about flow, and after that Wine Wednesday, someone asked a question in the comment section about how do you figure turnover, and I, of course, quoted Abby and everything else, but I was basically saying anywhere from 10 to 20. And can you talk a little bit more about what type of wave maker or powerhead you recommend for a smaller tank? I mean, like,
well, I'm not real up on all the different wave makers and power heads because I didn't use them. I had a sump and I used larger pumps in the sump, but the smaller the tank, the more difficult it is selecting your pumps because there's less room for the flow to break up. Where your larger tanks, it's easier to have a higher flow rate without having it blasting across the tank and having especially if you're going to, put in a power head or something like that inside the tank instead of in a sump.
you
well,
can
and I'll
still,
show.
use a heavy power head or a high flow power head, but you can make a diffuser to put on the output to split that flow up so it can't do any damage.
That's true. You can. And I mean, there's your imagination, that's the nice thing about the hobby is there's no one way to do everything. There's probably a gazillion different ways to do things and achieve the same result.
And I will just mention with power heads, if you do power heads, big or small tank, you want to cover them. So it's because seahorses will hitch and get their tails all jumbled up in there. And I was going to show really quickly in smaller tanks, and this is what I was describing when I commented on that. I use something like this, just an internal spray bar type filter. This one obviously goes over the tank, but the one I have actually goes in the tank and it creates flow and whatever. But the rule of thumb that Abby taught me was 10 to 20 and mixing it up. Like, so if you've got, let's say a 55 gallon tank and your sump's rated 550 gallons per hour, then you add 300 gallon per hour wave maker or whatnot. Is that a good way of saying it?
Yeah, the way that you can figure out your turnover, I mean, you could really get down to the math and, if you want to pull out the books on the engineering aspect, but for all your head pressures, but generally speaking, if you take a look at your pump, if you've got a 300 gallon per hour pump, well, in theory, you're moving 300 gallons per hour, but you're going to have some loss because of head pressure with your turns, your 90s, and the height of the tank. You're probably going to be closer to 250 or less, but that's your starting point of figuring out how much flow you have. So if you've got a 300 gallon per hour pump, there's no way you've got 600 gallons per hour in there circulating.
Right.
And see,
And Cheryl,
my pump is adjustable. And so what I did with the grow out tank, I got my gallons per hour from the overflow boxes of what they're rated for. So I had to match the pump to what was coming out of the overflow boxes, but I knew my gallons per hour because the overflow boxes are a set amount. That's what they are.
You're correct. You're correct with that. But the nice thing with today's equipment is if you buy a variable speed DC pump, you can get an oversized pump and you can dial it back and then slowly adjust it up to where you're comfortable. And that's a whole lot better than the old days of plugging in a pump going, oh, that's not enough, or oh, that's too much. These variable speeds are really handy for that purpose.
Oh, I love
and
it.
Cheryl,
The one you recommended, Jabeo one, and I love it. I have those in each of my sumps, and they're nice.
Me too. And the power heads I use are Jabeo, but I have bigger tanks. In my smaller tanks, I use like the internal filters and stuff like that just to move the water around. And Cheryl will, I'm sure, talk about this more next week when we see her tubs and everything. But she has a system where she uses Waymakers or power heads to literally make sure all the food ends up in one spot. So you can really dial it in and make it exactly what you want. And as far, guys, as go ahead, Cheryl.
I was just going to say, basically what I do is I either cut off or reduce. All my pumps are adjusted, first of all, everything. And I can sit there and reduce the flow on some wave makers and have them gradually keep it circulating, keeping it in the area, but giving it a little bit of time. So anything that's not eaten is going to be collected in one corner. Right there.
Yep.
It takes me maybe 2-3 minutes to clean out that corner.
And like I said, she's going to, sorry, go ahead.
I just don't have any build up of detritus in my tanks. But it's been, I build most of my own stuff. And I've got pumps that go back over 15 years that are adjustable. The old Marineland pumps that came out of Italy. It came out of Italy. And I've still got those pumps. They still care.
Yep, and she'll describe that much better next week when we get her audio fixed. Sorry, guys, but we can't do without Cheryl's great input. So she'll talk more about it next week. Bottom line. But what was I going to say? I was going to say something. Yeah, Cheryl with the pumps. I'm not sure what else I was going to say, but there's all sorts of creative ideas, and the idea is just to make sure. Oh, that's what I was going to say. Is how do you guys determine? Like Dan was just describing. Adjustable pumps, and I love the Jabeo DC pumps, but and wave makers that have that feed mode. That's helpful too. But also, how do you decide what's too much? In my case, if they fly across the tank and can't swim, that's too much. Otherwise, we're good. Because my seahorses flow dance, no joke. They'll swim right up to the wave maker. And then fly across the tank and swim right back again and fly. I mean, it's like a game to them. They love it. And I think, Holly, you pointed out one time that what's the most important is to create areas of both, where there's high flow and then not high flow, so the seahorse can chill or not chill,
variety,
right?
Yeah.
Love to body surf. I've been saying this for years. They do one of two things. They swim straight into the power head until they can't go anymore. They get blasted backwards and do somersaults, or go around and dive directly in front of the power head and get blasted across the tank. And first, I thought, you guys are going to be dead. I'm going back over 15 years ago.
Right.
And all of a sudden, I realized they know what they're doing.
Yeah, they chose to be there. If they have choices, I mean, they'll go where they want to go. So if they go there, it means they're fine with it.
They,
Before we move on to Regina's question, Ray, you haven't got a chance to really talk. Do you have any specific rate of flow, or how do you determine if the seahorse, the seahorse flow? How do you determine it?
For me, in my tanks, I've eyeballed it the last few years type of thing, but to find out and to get my bearings to start with, I would actually measure what was coming through the overflow in a given period to multiply it out and know for sure just how much I was actually getting. And then once I had an idea of that, like the tanks are all similar, and I can adjust things up. I've never had the luxury of having a DC pump though. So for me, if I was oversized on a return pump, all I did was put a valve in so I could bleed off from the output some right back into the sump where the the return pump is. You don't want to block off the intake. You always just divert the output. So that's
Well, sorry.
no,
I was just going to say, Ray, maybe try to find a picture of that. The reason, by the way, that we're trying to show more videos and pictures is so that you guys know what we're talking about. We were talking on Sunday about the fact that, when Cheryl starts talking about her tubs and her standpipes, I'll tell you, when I first got to know these guys and Cheryl said standpipe, I was like, what the hell's a standpipe, right? So we're trying to show pictures. So Ray, get us a picture of how you, if you can find one. If not, I'll try to. But I know what you're saying about diverting. Of the diversion. And do you have any pictures of that?
No, I actually only had one tank I ever had to divert on, and that was a reef tank, and that was probably 30 years ago.
Well, let's talk about Regina's question, and I'll try to find a picture. But Regina wants to know when you're fried. Go ahead, Cheryl.
I have basically valves in my sumps coming off of the pump, so they're still everything's still submerged, and I can adjust the flow without having to mess with the pump, just using my ball valve that I use as a bleed off valve.
Yep.
And it's a secondary backup, and that works really well.
Well, get us a picture, Cheryl, so we can show it next week. I'll try to find one right now, though, too. But Regina wants to know, when your fries start immediately scratching, does that mean you have a ciliate problem in your adult tank? And if so, can you treat with formalin? And also, what if you have a cleanup crew? Dan, you want to handle that one?
Doesn't mean that you have in your tank or a problem in your tank. You're going to have ciliates in their tank, but it doesn't mean it's a problem. And I personally would never use formalin in my display tank anyway. But for the fry, yes, it would be an automatic to do formalin treatments.
I do automatically now. When I have fry, their very first day they get formalin, and then every other day for 3 treatments.
Dan, thoughts?
Dan,
Dan, you're muted.
You're muted. Unmute.
How about now?
You're
Can you hear me?
fine now.
Okay.
Yes.
Our standard protocol when we had fry was to immediately move them to a fry tank, and we would start right then and there with our first dose of formalin, and we would do it the first day, the third day, and the 5th day. And after that, anytime we saw scratching, we treated with formalin. If you don't, you'll probably end up losing the fry in short order.
And she said she's never seen her adult scratch, but the babies almost immediately start right after birth.
Yep, they're much more sensitive to the ciliates than the adults. The adults can handle a certain amount of ciliates, but the fry, it's very irritating to them.
It's like a mosquito landing on us. If a mosquito lands on us, it's a real problem. But if the mosquito, or it's not that much of a problem, but if a mosquito lands on
an infant,
small like a baby or something, then the size differential is quite significant. And especially, I guess, with seahorse fry. I guess I can't even liken something to compare with humans, something small enough that would have the same effect.
Well, and this is an odd question, but in the seahorse fry, one of the things I love the most is you can basically see through them. I mean, you can see when they eat, you see orange stomachs. Dan, is that because like their thick skin hasn't grown yet?
They're just smaller, and some of them are more translucent at that point in time. But remember this is that your two leading causes of losing fry is to ciliates and bacterial enteritis. So it's very big on treating that.
So formalin, and yeah, I mean, well, never mind. You covered it. But I was also going to say
of bacterial enteritis in fry under a microscope, and you can clearly see the inflamed bright red GI tract and the way it's compressing the swim bladder. It makes the swim bladder look huge, but it's being caused by the inflammation in the GI tract due to the bacterial enteritis.
Yep, correct.
And for us that aren't microscope people, what is bacterial enteritis or whatever you said?
It's bacterial in the gut that's inflaming the gut.
Gotcha. So, and the gut's the big thing with seahorses. And how can you avoid that?
Clean food and probiotics.
So the probiotics and clean food. What do you mean by clean food?
Well, a lot of people think just because Artemia lives through the hatching process that it's all good to go. But the reality is, if you don't do proper cleaning protocols with the Artemia, both with the equipment and with, the way you set it up and use it, you can end up with high bacterial counts in the live feeds. And, I've seen everybody, go, they think that, they can take some old tank water and save by using that to hatch the Artemia. The reality is you want everything as clean and sterile as possible so that you have good, clean food to feed the animals.
And we will go into detail about that at Ask Seahorse Source Part 4, where we cover Artemia and fry. But Regina did want to know, and John, of course, we're always here to give the useful information, but definitely go join Seahorse Sources group because it's really hard when someone says, how do you set up a seahorse tank? Like Dan, we all covered the basics, but it really depends on what you're looking for, what you want. A lot of us do bare bottom tanks because we want to, we want fry. Whereas if you're looking for a, beautiful, colorful tank, you could do it differently. There's just so many different ways, but he covered the basics very well.
I also did a talk for one of the clubs, which is on YouTube. It's an hour-long video of me discussing with the Reef Club how to set up a seahorse tank. And that covers a lot of different things, a lot of questions and stuff that were asked. And if you've got an hour to kill and want to watch it, you might learn something out of it.
I'm going to try to find that right now. And I know I have it, but I'm going to try to find it now and get that in the description for you guys.
It's in there.
That. And go ahead, Cheryl. Go ahead, Cheryl.
I was going to say, it's in there. I can pull it up and post it tomorrow.
Yep.
There you go, Kelly.
Yep. And I got it, I think. Hang on. I got
Dan shared it on our private.
Yep. So just basically, if you look for Seahorse Source on YouTube, here are the talks he's given. Setting up a tank successfully for seahorse keeping. I mean, there's quite a few really good videos of talks he's given. Go ahead, Cheryl.
I was going to say that there's the one, the best, one of the best ones is actually on his Facebook page, the Seahorse Sources group.
That's true too. Yep.
I think when he did much more recently, went on for like over an hour, and he went through all the different steps from tanks set up and all the just a plethora of information for somebody starting out.
Yep. And there was something else I was going to go back to. Okay. Daniel, dream team. Heck yeah. Thank you. And then let me stop sharing. And Regina wanted to know, so you treat the babies on day one. Can you just go through quickly the Of course, you can find the formalin treatment on Seahorse Sources Group in the file section. But Dan, what is the basic treatment? Day one, put them in the formalin.
Yeah, it's 1 ml per 10 gallons, 37% formalin, and it's done day 1, day 3, day 5, and after that it's PRN or as needed.
Gotcha. Okay, what else, you guys? Because I'm gonna try to limit tonight's because Dan actually came and we don't want to keep him all night. But what else have we not covered? What else do we need to cover? Anybody? Oh, Cheryl and Holly, did you get your char chambers?
Not yet.
It's coming Friday. It's been shipped.
It's been shipped. Very good, very good. Just wanted to make sure. Can't wait to hear your thoughts on that. And
Looking forward to playing with it and seeing what it can do.
absolutely. Don't worry, guys. We're going to get her audio fixed, and next week's going to be, you're going to see so many cool pictures of Cheryl's tanks, and she's going to describe her sumps and why she uses K1 and her tubs and all that good stuff.
Dan,
Ray, I think you,
Dan was one. I'm using
Dan did all of it.
Say again.
Regina had one. Go ahead. What did you say, Cheryl?
I said Dan did it. He's the one that got me using K1.
Right, of course.
Regina called me, and I parked and had security. I was still on company property. Had security looking at me like I was out of my mind.
Yep. Well, good thing for Dan. Regina said, okay, so I have another question about that. I use regular tap water for the Artemia. Should she be using RODI water?
That's a great question, and the correct answer is it depends. And when I say that, it depends upon the quality of your tap water. My rule, what I did was I used the same water I used on my tanks I used for my Artemia.
Yeah.
So I had all my systems running at about between 26 to 27 parts per thousand with salinity, and I actually had running seawater everywhere, so I just used that. But if the tap water doesn't have a bunch of chloramines in it, or if it's well water and doesn't have too much crap in it, then I'd have no problem doing that.
Yeah.
Well, Dan, for instance,
and I literally run a 1 micron sediment filter as a pre-filter before anything goes into my regular RODI unit, because it just got too expensive having to change filters constantly and resin. And it's definitely worth adding on the extra filter.
she's not a chipmunk, y'all. She's just having audio problems.
Now,
Dan,
as far
were
as
you gonna say something?
as far as the probiotics go, that's another question she's asking is, does that mean the probiotics in the Artemia jar as they are feeding? I put probiotics in during the hatch, and I did it during the enrichment as well. So as long as I had Artemia going, I had probiotics in there with them.
So you said you do it during the hatch and during the enrichment. How much?
Well, it
Did it
depends.
depend on?
Yeah, it depends on what strength you had. I was using a commercial version, but if you're using regular Mike F, it's about eighth of a teaspoon of probiotics to the hatching comb, assuming it's at least 1 liter.
And I don't know if we covered this on Ask Seahorse Source Part 3, but do you add the probiotics directly to the tank or the hatchery or whatever, or do you mix it first with like water?
Both. When I'm doing the Artemia, I would add the powder while it's bubbling. And in the tanks, I had so many tanks, I actually made up a big jar of it, and I went around with a big syringe and dosed each tank based on the size. I had a formula down to where I could I knew how many mLs based on my mix, how many to give each tank.
But you mixed it with water first?
Yeah, in that instance, I did, only because it was easier. I don't know, if you have an overflow from a surface, it's better to mix it so that it goes down into the water column. If you don't have a surface overflow, you could just drop it in the top and let it dissolve and go down in the tank. It'll probably be fine.
Hey,
Or
Dan,
maybe if
can
you have an
mix
adjustable
it
pump.
ahead of time? Let's say make a batch for, to put in like a 1 or 2 liter bottle mix it in your food processor or something and store it in the refrigerator? Or do you
Well,
have to use it each time as a powder?
okay, you don't want to put it with a food processor because you're dealing with bacterial spores. You're not looking to chop them up or rough them up. You're just looking
Right.
to mix them with water and hydrate them.
Mhm.
I've done it to where, like if I was going to use it the next hour or so, I think that's fine. But
Mhm.
if it's something I'm going to be try to keep for a day or two, no, I want to mix it each day.
Okay.
And don't forget, Andrea's our wonderful person who got a big batch of Mike F and is willing to share. If you need to reach out to her, reach out to me. Oh, sorry, I keep forgetting I'm gone. And I can get you in touch with her. Look, Andrea, you're probably going to be like, Kelly, stop it! All these people, because everybody wants it. But more of us wind up getting a big batch and sharing, and etc. But yeah, definitely go back and watch Seahorse Source Part 3 for the probiotics because he talked a lot about that. Ray, anything else? Or Ray, what's going on with you? Actually, I didn't let you share what was going on with you
Oh,
with your
nothing going
seahorse.
on with me. I'm down to the one seahorse now because I euthanized a female last Thursday.
Aw.
But
Yeah.
so now, as long as the male keeps on going and doesn't show any signs of a problem, then I'll keep on going until it gets to the point where I'm unable to do anything anymore.
Well,
How is he
that made
doing
me sad,
without
but
her?
I'm sorry, what was that, Holly?
How is he doing without her now that he's alone, you think?
He's different, and his swimming habits are different, and but I can't say that he appears to be having a problem at all.
Mhm.
Physically, I saw something yesterday that started disturbing me. His pouch opening had become inverted. It's like somebody had taken a funnel and shoved it in the pouch, and it stayed inwards instead of
Oh.
just being in the normal position and closed. But
Mhm.
today I noticed that inversion is a lot less. So I don't know why it
Huh.
happened, but it
and
appears
this is
it
this is
appears
the
to be
male with.
coming out.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but this is the male with the weird
Yeah, with
pinching too.
the concave sides on it, but it still eats like
Huh.
a pig.
Mhm.
Any thoughts, Dan? Inverted pouch?
Not
Put
a
him on
whole.
the spot when he takes
Yeah,
a break.
yeah. No. It's a difficult position because there's not a lot we can do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not something I'm worrying about. When I first saw it, it disturbed me and just wondering, well, Jesus, 19 years and I've never seen that. Why is it starting now?
Is it a prolapse
Right.
pouch with what you're talking about?
No, no, it's the pouch opening actually goes inwards.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, okay. I
like
have
if you
never
were
seen that.
and you pressed your finger on it and depressed it and it stayed there.
Yeah, I have never
Never
seen
seen
that.
it.
Did he ever have fry?
Did he
Sorry?
ever have fry? Did he ever have fry?
Oh, 5 or 6 years ago. But that
Take
it's been a
pictures,
long
Ray, because
time.
when somebody figures it out, it'll be a good example. But
Well, I'm
and
hoping by tomorrow, like from what it was there today, it was probably only a third of what the depression that was in it yesterday. So I'm thinking that overnight it's probably whatever it was is going to be gone. And I'm not sure that I could take a picture of it. Usually, when I try to take a picture of something like that, a camera isn't able to pick up the depth.
yeah,
You don't have that 3D capability with the camera.
right.
I've tried to tour
Well,
things before like that and never had any luck.
it's hard. It's hard, I know. But when things like this happen, is it usually like something internal? Like, because we know Ray's tanks are great. I mean,
Well, see, I've never encountered this, so I have no experience to be able to offer an opinion on what might cause it. It's definitely not because of the dirty tank.
Right.
I
We
have
knew that.
I have to mark E for don't know.
Yep.
Yeah.
Me too. And Regina, I just wanted to say to you that you're going to use your RODI water from now on. Definitely with you there. I got a TDS test, or not a TDS. I got a water report on my water here, and my TDS was like 403. It was incredibly high. It was terrible. I have terrible water, so I use RODI for everything for sure, including hatcheries.
I never used
And
DI with the seahorses.
you
On a,
didn't?
nope. On a reef tank, the DI makes sense, but with fish only, you really don't need the DI for fish only.
And now, why do you say that?
You don't have to filter it down as hard for fish as you do for the corals.
So for seahorses, you don't, I mean, because like we talk, actually, that's a good thing. Last topic, but you talk about we need really clean water for seahorses, but I guess we really don't then, right?
No, I
You
said
need to,
clean water. I didn't say mineral free water.
so minerals don't count. It doesn't add to like the organics and stuff. It's
Well,
just
it's a
minerals.
possibility. I guess you could have some stuff, but
If you're on
I
a
forgot.
well, you thinking about it.
Yeah, but I forgot where I read it. But a long time ago, when I first got started, I was told that maybe it was with the guy who I got my equipment from. But I was told that DI really isn't needed for fish only. It's more so for coral tanks.
Huh.
So I have an RODI water maker, and I switch out the DI resin when it's showing 1. So does that mean I can let it go higher before switching that out? Like, what do you think is acceptable?
Most of the reefers I know
My tap water is TDS of 1.
go to 3. You can change it out by when you get to 3.
What's
Cheryl
that? By
says 3.
3? Okay.
Yep. And this is news to me. I'm glad, Dan, that you shared this because I didn't know that. And the thing is, I've often wondered if us stripping all the minerals might be doing some sort of harm. Like we had the whole conversation about calcium, and everybody tells me I'm wrong. But I read a paper somewhere that said, if you lack calcium in the tank, that it affects the bones of whatever. I don't know. I can't quote it right, so I'm not going to go into it. But that's interesting.
Well, my biggest thing was pulling the chemical stuff out of the water, that more than anything else, as far as I was concerned. My first, my first 2 years of doing seahorses, I used regular tap water, and we did not use RO water at all. And
me too.
It wasn't until they switched from chlorine to chloramines that I had to change my thinking. So I have a 2 cubic foot charcoal filter the water goes through before it ever gets to the RO unit. And I could almost just take the water coming out of that charcoal unit and use it for the way I was doing it, because I was using seawater and I was only using RO water to cut it down to, bring the salinity down.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I mean, I'm so glad to know this because my water's really, really bad though. Like in the water report, it said it had like a carcinogenic. It was really, really bad. But I when I don't have RODI water made, I go out and buy distilled. So good to know that it's not as worrisome as I thought. And let's see. Okay, guys, get all your comments in. I'm calling the 5-minute warning. It's almost 10 o'clock here, so 5-minute warning. Any other questions, you got to ask them now. We'll bug Dan to come back for Ask Seahorse Source Part 3. We'll do Cheryl's tanks next week. And, of course, Dan, you guys are welcome to come anytime. But, Regina, you have city water, and it's awful. Iron stains on everything. Oh, geez. I feel you. Where are you from, Regina? I'm in Indiana. Mine sucks, too. I'm with you. But okay. Sorry, kid's bugging me. Any other, we have so many viewers. I hate to cut it, but like I said, I didn't have anything. We've had a great chat. I didn't have anything planned because we were going to have Chipmunk Cheryl cover her tanks today. So anything else we need to talk about?
You guys want to join the chipmunks?
I think we.
Okay, chipmunks on the way.
There you go. It'll be better next week. But Dan, we just love when you join us too, because you answer so many questions so great. And hey, let's put you on the spot. When are we doing part 4?
I don't know. Have you got all the questions?
Yeah, they're already up. Oh no, you wanted me to ask more. Okay, guys, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put up a post. I think I already said I'd do this, but I will do it now. Where I've already gotten many questions for him about fry and hatching artemia and going through the entire process of using peroxide and etc. I'm going to put up a post, so if you have any other questions that we can add to the questions, put them there. Watch for the post, Seahorse Whisperer, and on Seahorse Sources group. But I'll get them to you, Dan, within this week, and then we'll figure out a date. Sound
Okay,
good?
sounds good.
All right. Okay, guys. Well, I think I am going to call it. Holly, Ray, nothing else?
Nope.
All right. Well, great chat tonight. Thank you to everybody who came. And we'll see you next week to go over Cheryl's tubs and tanks. It'll be great.
Unless I'm still a
All right. I'm going to call it. You won't be. We will make sure you're not. But thank you, Andrea, Heather, everybody. Oh, wait. One last thing. I forgot. When we did show your tanks, I forgot to show Miss Heather's beautiful tank. And I want to do that before we go. This is just one of them. Heather is the one with the sea shed. But she did put this on the post. And Heather, in the comments or something, let us know what this is about. She said she always changes up her tanks because she doesn't like the seahorses getting bored. I love it. You move the rocks around, new hitching posts. Every water change their tank changes too. But that's a cute tank. They got places to crawl underneath and swim underneath, whatever. Hitch to. I'm always about the Gorgonians, fake or real. But it looks like you use is this a sumped tank, Heather, is what I want to know. It looks like you have hang on
Uses
back
all
skimmer.
of it, I think. She uses both sumps and hang on back.
That's right. She's the one who's like does it all. I forgot. So that's somebody you definitely want to know. And she's in Seahorse Sources group. But beautiful tank. Just wanted to make sure I did share it since I didn't share it on the show your tank day. We can do more of those too, guys. Regina, all of you, anyone who wants to share their tank, you're more than welcome to do so. But I am going to call it tonight. Everybody's getting antsy. Kids are bugging me. I'm going to say Happy Wine Wednesday, and we'll see you next week. Happy
Good night,
Wine
everyone.
Wednesday.
Good night.
Thanks, everyone.